Should you have bought HeroQuest Mythic Tier when you had the chance, or was it not worth the errors and additional delays? In this video, I will be unboxing and reviewing the Mythic Tier and providing my first reaction to the game.
As you can see, I finally got my Mythic Tier as a Canadian. This was actually quite an adventure to get. This first started when it was announced that Canadian Mythic Tiers were going to be delayed until mid-December, but I was kind of fine with that because I knew that I had already waited over a year for this game. Then, it was being reported that Canadians were having their sets showing up, and then after that getting the email that it left the building. And sure enough, the same thing happened to me. This defeats the point of having a tracking number entirely, because you're not going to know where your set is until you have it. You may as well not use that information technology for tracking packages at all if you're not going to use it properly. My next issue was my own fault. I know that on the Pulse campaign it said cannot deliver to PO boxes, but just to be safe and make sure that it got to me, I put on both my real address and my PO box address. Seems like their system read that as just a PO box, because after I got the email on December 7th saying that my set had arrived and it was delivered, I noticed in the FedEx delivery manager it said it was delivered to address other than recipient. Now that worried me because I thought, oh no, did they give it to some random person? But upon phoning FedEx customer service and having a friendly representative help me, he said that they shipped it off to Canada Post because it was PO box and they do not handle that. And sure enough, there was a parcel card in our PO box and we just went to the post office and got this big set right here. I've opened up the outside box, but it's time to take a look at the box that's within a box. Upon opening that box, I was greeted by the giant HeroQuest base game box, as well as this little cardboard insert here. Taking that off, I'm greeted by Return of the Witch Lord, Kellar's Keep, the stretch goal box, and the base game. I have to take this out separately because it's stuck within the other box. Here's Kellar's Keep. Looking nice. I'm taking a thorough look at all this stuff a little bit later. And Return of the Witch Lord. The stretch goal box we can tell by Venom on the back, and our big barbarian on the front, and the big boy, the base game. The first thing that we need to look at is, of course, the base game. I'd already inspected it after taking it out of the big box, and mine appears to be free of damage so far, which is good. That tiny scuff right there could be considered my only damage, and a sticker that looks slightly worn down, but that is super minor, I do not care. This right here is the back of the box. I've gone over these details in a previous video. I'll get my hobby knife and slice this all open. Some people have suggested using like a hairdryer to remove these stickers. For now, I'm just gonna leave them. I might slowly peel them off and see if I can do that without breaking my box. I've successfully peeled off half of the sticker, so yeah, it's possible. Let's decap this thing. Oh wow, that was actually surprisingly easy to get off. I've seen other people struggle with it. One thing I do have to say is that I really appreciate this sturdy box. Just listen. So hopefully this stands the test of time and for another 30 years. We are greeted by this, which appears to be another HeroQuest logo, but this is one of the plastic trays. This has the miniatures in it. This second one that's significantly heavier has all the furniture in it, and at the bottom of this box, we have ourselves the game board. Doing a quick inspection, it seems to be good, which is nice. And wowee, I'm struggling to get this in frame. It's a rather large board. Yes, it's crooked because it's on the box right now. Look at that detail right there. That is one nice game board. I'm quite impressed by that, honestly. Below that, the all-important thin cardboard spacer. But actually, wrapped in this paper package are the tiles. Got our pit traps, our stairs, which in this version of the game are two-sided in case you want a different type of stair. We have these extra tiles that are also part of the new game, and this I believe is like a turn tracker. This Illuminati looking eye is actually for the heroes, and that's the Zargon symbol. These are the secret doors, which is a top view of a door, but many people, me included, initially thought that these look like a trapdoor. I'll punch one of these out because I'm going to play with this game anyways. Very nice little cardboard token. Interestingly, one side has kind of like rounded corners on that compared to the other side where it's flat. That's cool. And of course, you can't forget your rule book. This is in a nice magazine style of paper, rather than the old one that was a non-glossy paper. But yeah, thick pages, I'd say. Nice. I like it. I don't think there's too much need for me to go through this very thoroughly, as this is also available in PDF form through the website if you do not happen to have this game. I'm just quickly admiring the artwork for our new heroes, new lore with the world being different and not Warhammer. Hero turns, got all your actions, how line of sight works, how the trap rules work, Zargon's turn with Abomination art there, and some game notes, which I don't know if you'd be able to write on that just because of the type of paper it is. It's probably better just to use a regular notebook, honestly, or a piece of loose leaf. Here we have the all-important quest book. This is made of that same thick magazine type material. Here's the trial. I don't want to spoil any of this, but I'm just going to show a couple pages. Oh, seen something slightly weird. A little bit of dings in this book, or bends. Oh, it was just on a single page. That's fine. Okay. Nothing to worry about. At the back of this book, there is, of course, the dreaded blank map, so that you can put a monster in every single space, as you should. Here is Zargon's GM screen. This has the same information as the old American one did, but obviously with the new artwork on the front, which we have been seeing for a long time in digital form, but it's very nice to see in person for once. I'm really liking this thing. Enough of the boring paper stuff. It's time to unsleeve these miniatures and see what I'm working with. I did take a peek at these, but I don't know what to expect for all these miniatures. Here are all the miniatures and the dice. Well, except for the furniture, but that's on its own tray. Looking pretty nice. I'm happy so far that everything's here. Let's check my dice here. Oh, I can tell this tray is going to be an issue already. Minor printing error on the skeleton eye. These are quite sturdy dice. I like them. The D6 movement dice, of course. Upon inspection, the only two defects on these dice that I can see is that the two lion dice on the left do not have as well defined of a mouth as the one on the right, but that is a minor nitpick. So far, that's all that I've been seeing with this game is minor nitpicks. Overall, so far, it's really good. Enough about dice. Now, on to miniatures. The first thing that surprised me is just how teeny these things are. Here's the old GW skeleton to compare. Quite a bit smaller, less chunky, but at the same time, does appear to be the approximate size that a human skeleton would be in 28mm. And of course, these base sizes are exactly the same. The old GW bases and these new ones are both 1 inch in diameter, and they appear to have the same height. For people with a painting handle, such as me, you can just easily put that in there, no worries, rather than the old HeroQuest miniatures with the rectangular bases. It was a little bit of a struggle to get them in there. Ooh. You can hear just the pop of that tight plastic tray. Oh, some of these are in tight and some aren't. That's interesting. The legion of 4 identical skeletons, with the size of 2 of them being slightly bent, and I'll have to fix that using the hot water trick. One thing that's interesting with these is actually how rigid the plastic is. Like, I know it's made of a softer plastic, but it's actually fairly hard. I was expecting to be able to bend stuff super easily, and so that's maybe a good sign. It's a better plastic maybe than I thought. I'm lifting up the whole tray by money. That's not a good sign. Other people that I've seen open this set have been right about this plastic tray. As much as I appreciate it from an organizational standpoint, the way that they've done it is just way too tight. I could be wrong, but I think the dragon's in a little bit looser. And if all of them were like that, this tray would be a good idea and still be acceptable for painters. There are options like Battle Foam, or I believe the other brand is Feldherr, if you do not like this but still want to keep your miniatures organized. As I'm testing getting some of these miniatures out, I've come up with somewhat of a strategy to pop them out, including some of the tougher ones like these orcs here with the axes. As you can see, he's back up in there, but something you can do is depress the plastic tray slightly, and then it's actually not too difficult to pull them out. There was still a snapping from that plastic tray, but it wasn't as bad as when I just pulled it straight out. Same thing for this mummy here. Deform those tabs slightly and you'll be able to get them out a lot easier. Giving some of these miniatures a quick look over, we have a couple different things. I'm kind of surprised at how sturdy pieces of plastic these are. And with them being one piece construction or a couple pieces glued together, they should also last. Granted, as long as your thing is assembled properly. Some of the weapons are slightly bendy, including the elf sword. But overall, I'm satisfied with that. Our orc, one of the female orcs with the mace. Goblin with the cleaver. Abomination that replaces the famir. His polearm is slightly bendy, and again, that's something I can fix with just a little bit of hot water, so that's no problem. Then we got the big baddie of the gargoyle. This one's looking nice as well. This is such a surreal experience. After following this campaign for over a year, then seeing other people have their sets for over a month, it's strange that I own my own copy now as well. Our mummy, one of the Dread Warriors, with a slightly bendy mace that I will have to fix. Our Dread Sorcerer buddy with a surprisingly thin staff. If anything's going to break off from this set, it's going to be something like the end of the staff, because that's incredibly thin. The other cool thing about this guy is you can really tell he's molded onto his base. So in the factory they must have had him upside down like this. Here is the zombie, the sculpt that I wasn't sure about when I first saw it. And seeing the physical thing, starting to like this a little bit more actually. This is the final version of plastic, and you can actually tell that there's teeth in there, unlike that image that we saw from them. So I'm not sure whether that was a prototype type of plastic or what, but I'm satisfied with this sculpt now, I think. And of course, the 4 heroes. We have the wizard. You can tell a mouth on this. Some people say that there isn't really a mouth, so it's good that I have one. The elf with her flowing cape, that is a tiny bit of sprue on the cape, but again, that's a tiny nitpick. I can just clip that off. It's a bit difficult for my camera to pick up, but you can see there is quite a bit of face detail there, and how the light reflects off all the other details. Then we have the barbarian with his broadsword, or broadsword, if you like the British commercial, and a very bendy sword as well, but hopefully this will stand the test of time, rather than breaking off like many people's did with the old one. And we have the stout little dwarf. The rope pattern on this axe is so tiny. At first I thought it didn't have any, but you can see it does have. And I did see pictures of someone whose axe was not complete, so I'm glad that mine is complete. I'm very impressed with this quality so far, and I'm really enjoying this.
On my turntable, I was able to display all of the base game miniatures. This first group is all the undead, and you can see that the slightly different warping of the scythes creates variation in the pose and cooler looking weapons. Secondly, I've combined together the heroes, Dread Warriors, and the gargoyle. Miniatures do sometimes wobble on this turntable, but with some of these it indicates an uneven or warped base. The Dread Warriors do look intimidating. Thirdly are the 6 goblins and 3 abominations. The abominations reach out quite far, so even with the sized up board, there is some crowding when playing. Fourth are all 8 orcs, with 4 females and 4 males. The female orcs have maces and small swords, while the males have large swords and great axes. With the miniatures all dealt with, it's time that we take a look at the furniture. This one, because it's quite a bit heavier, has this nice little thumb hole. And on tray number 2 is where all our doors, our cupboards, the fireplace, the tomb, chests, rat skulls, weapon rack, alchemist desk, the tables, throne, torture rack, and sorcerer's table are all contained, as well as the character sheets of course, and the big stack of cards. I guess we should probably just take a look at some of these doors. Looks like they've gotten out of place from me moving this stuff around. These are sturdy. This is the open door. It's got vines crawling up all the way through it, and a nice big old face there on the top. That's what it looks like on the bottom if you want to see. And when smacked down onto the ground, it looks like that. On the leftmost side of that stack of doors, we have the closed variant. This, of course, has the exact same outer look, but it does have the classic door hinge style for the door that's on the inside. Same thing with the vines going up the side, and unsurprisingly, it's the exact same size as the open variant, because they're meant to represent the same door. Here's the scale compared to a new skeleton if you want to see that. Next, let's move on to the sorcerer table. That was not too bad to pop out using this little thing to help me, and wow. This is just a solid hunk of plastic. While you can see that my candle is a little bit bent, this is interesting because it seems like these candles are a lot more flexible and hopefully less prone to breaking than the old ones were. This new one also has a weird, very cracked texture on the top, and that's kind of interesting. This has some heft to it, no wonder this tray is so heavy. Now, the torture rack. Oh, this one's partially hollow. They were probably saving on material here as well as weight. And the interesting thing about this, when compared to the old one, is that it now uses a crank, whereas the old one just had these two arms that rotated a single board. As well as another difference being that this is like a big stone top, whereas this one's like wood with iron reinforcements. We have the nice little throne here. Oh, it has texture on the back too, I did not realize that. Looks like the plastic might have got stressed there. That will be just easy to paint over because I'm painting this stuff anyways. The two tables. These I am impressed with. I'm really liking this look. Whoa, they even did texture underneath? I like how they've gone for a similar shape as the old one, but without needing these two extra arms because it's just a flat piece of board. As far as I can tell, this was wood on the edge, while the new one has some kind of metal holding all these boards in place to form a table. I struggled a bit to get the weapons rack here, but it looks nearly identical to the old one, with the only exception being that the shield with the fleur-de-lis is replaced by the Zargon evil shield symbol. I would say definitely this piece will be compatible with the old set. You can even see you got curved sword, an axe, then you have a pole arm of some kind, then you got a mace, you have a longsword and a flail, and then the shield on the other side. The alchemist's desk is another sturdy one, and again, I didn't realize that they were going to do texture on the backside. This is thick as well, it's quite heavy. You can see that the scale is actually part of this thing, you can't detach it, whereas on the old one it was originally separate. Same thing with the bottles on the old one, they were held in just by a little peg and then you could pull them out if you needed them. I've heard from other people that these rats are incredibly difficult to get out, so let's see if that's the case. I had to pop from the back and it went flying, but it was only a foot or two away. As you may notice on this new set, all the rats and the skulls do not have any pegs. And for some reason these skulls are actually on sprue, despite the fact that they were saying none of the stuff was sprue cast. What? The treasure chests have texture on the bottom? Oh, this looks nice. I'm liking this. It's a lot better than the cardboard ones that weren't always centered. Ooh. Then we got the big old tomb. And this holds a surprise. You can open it up and store something in there. I've seen people putting their skulls and rats in here just so they don't get lost. The skeleton is unfortunately too large to fit, but this still could have some play value and I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of set on there. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could glue it down, but I don't see any point in doing that. You shouldn't lose these two giant components unless you're very careless. These cupboards and bookshelves are very sturdy. They have texture on the back, which is the same as the old ones, except it was obviously just printed on the cardboard. The one cupboard in each set is fairly similar, same style of doors and everything, and the bookshelves are actually a combination of the two. You can see that it has elements of this bookshelf with that skull being there, but there are elements of this other bookshelf as well with the laying down books there, and the scrolls in the back, and there are two identical ones. But if you really wanted to make these different, you could glue down either a skull or a rat, or do some other customization with this. But I don't think it matters too much if they look identical. Our nice big fireplace. Looks like my wood's floating a bit, so I may have to fix that, hopefully using the hot water trick. If not, I'm gonna fill that little gap there. And you may notice the spot for a portrait is blank. You can stick whatever printed thing you want in there, or just leave it blank, or paint your own design. And wow, brick texture on the back as well. This is probably going to last a lot better than the old cardboard one that was prone to bending right here where mine was bent. And yeah, I don't think you're going to bend that thick of plastic anytime soon, no matter how hard you try. There's the well where the character sheets sit, and these are the character sheets. The character sheets are nearly identical to the old American ones. It makes sense because this re-release was based off the American game. You have your gold, you have your room for your potions, place to complete quests. I think this is only for the main campaign though, and not the expansion packs. Then we have body points, which I believe the way you do it is crossing off for how many body points you have gone. Spot for weapons and armor. Oh yeah, and it's a big thick pad as well. I don't think you'll be running out of character sheets anytime soon. And finally, we have this thick stack of cards. These ones that say HeroQuest at the back are something to give your players if they've never played before, especially, just to say what they can do on their turn, and then they don't have to keep asking you as the game master. Then we have our 4 character cards: Barbarian, description on the back, Dwarf, Elf, and Wizard. You may have noticed in the new game they're very small, whereas in the old game they were these thick cardboard things, the same thickness as the tiles. I'm not sure whether this is a positive change or negative, because it does standardize things, but I'm not sure if the cards are going to last as well over the years or not. It's hard to say. All these cards with the big gargoyle, these are monsters. Nice full art of all these monsters. Zombie looking very emaciated. And a symbol corresponding to what they look like on the map, so you can tell that as well. And quickly comparing this to the old one, these cards are fairly similar in size, but you can tell they are a lot wider. And as much as I love these new ones, there's just a certain vintage charm about these old cards that I don't think this new game is ever going to recapture fully. Obviously, the stats are exactly the same, as you can tell there. Now let's move on to the next part of the deck. These would be the artifacts. These are special things you get during a quest. So things like Borin's Armor, Rod of Telekinesis, Spirit Blade for taking down the Witch Lord, Talisman of Lore. I think that might be something in the first quest. Wand of Magic, Wizard's Cloak, Wizard's Staff. Next are the equipment cards. This is a rather thick stack, but this does replace that one armory sheet that the old one had. And there's duplicates of things, even though you can still buy them even if you don't have cards for them. But I think it's just so that multiple heroes can get some of the main things that are here. Whether that be the shield, or short sword, staff, toolkit for disarming traps. Battle axe, of course you want the dwarf to have that. Bracers, which is non-metallic armor.
Broadsword.
The next section of the deck is all the different spell types. This is the back of the dread spells, and there are different things here that can hurt the heroes. Next we have Earth, which features a giant earth elemental, rock golem looking guy. Pass through rock, other earth-inspired spells. Then we have the fire ones, which is the fire elemental, destroying an entire city. There's just a couple here: Fire of Wrath, Courage, and Ball of Flame. The air spells have an air elemental that looks like a storm. This is things like Swift Wind or Genie. Now we come to Treasure. In this deck, of course, you have Wandering Monsters, which they're all together right now because you're supposed to shuffle this deck. You have some beneficial items from searching, but some that may bring you despair, like hazards right here. Good timing. Shortly after I handled this last, for some reason the tiny part on the top of the scale broke, and it's this little thing. I noticed in the video that it was loose. I am going to see if I can re-glue this, but this is not really a big deal. Like, you can barely notice that it was even supposed to be there. I thought it'd be important to include it just because it is something that some people may not like about this new game. With the base game stuff out of the way, we can then move on to the Mythic Tier stuff. Kellar's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord, and of course, the stretch goal box. To start off easy, I'm gonna open up Kellar's Keep. And after shaking off the lid, the contents have been revealed. Of course, we have the quest book, which, just giving it a quick flip through,
There's the contents. Artifact references, which on the old book used to be things you had to cut out. But now we have actual cards, and of course the blank map. I skipped over the quests for spoiler reasons. Oh, the tiles in this one are quite a bit bigger, so they had to fold in half to fit. We have a boulder looking thing and a statue that people originally weren't sure what was for, but I think it's just something extra because they had extra room. You have real trapdoors here, pit traps. I think this is a map, even though I haven't played Kellar's Keep. I think that's a map. Some kind of spell effect, some kind of chasm or forge, stair tiles, and on the back it is just blank. I'll set these cards aside for now. There's nothing out of the ordinary in here. It's more the same monsters that we saw in the base game. I don't see any reason to take them out, but what is special are the two doors. This, I believe, is the reinforced door. You can see it's a different style than the base game doors. And the other one here is the iron door. This one has a nice skull face on it, and there's flames down here right where my thumb is. Oh, it even has rocks on the top. That's neat. I was not expecting that. Same type of plastic insert as the base game. And I do not believe there's anything underneath this. Nope. I forgot to read the back of the box. Can the heroes rescue the king in time? Revisit the rich story of HeroQuest with Kellar's Keep. An exciting expansion that challenges you to solve an ancient puzzle to triumphantly rescue the king from the evil grasp of Zargon. With 10 exciting quests, 17 finely detailed monsters, and full color tiles, Kellar's Keep continues your HeroQuest adventure. Yeah, these are exactly the same sculpts as the base game. Cards. Taking off the paper, what we see are new equipment cards, artifacts, and that's all that's in this expansion. So we have spell scrolls for equipment. Oh, artifacts actually. And then these different potions are your equipment. I could be wrong, but I think you can integrate this into your base game deck if you wanted to. Just to give your heroes a little bit more of a chance, though not certain about the rules on that. The evil Witch Lord awaits your arrival. Revisit the rich story of HeroQuest with Return of the Witch Lord, an exciting expansion in which you must destroy the Witch Lord, who hides from the light of day with his army of the undead. With 10 exciting quests, 16 finely detailed monsters, and full color tiles, Return of the Witch Lord continues your HeroQuest adventure. And there's another description up there that you can read if you want. Let's get this one popped open too. Just like with Kellar's Keep, we're first greeted by the quest book. Oh, the Alchemist shop is here. That's interesting. Can't remember where it was on the original game. It's been a while since I've played that. Then we have the contents like the other one, message from mentor, and then you get into the quest, which is spoiler territory. But very obviously, the last quest is where you get to utilize your Witch Lord's tile here with his throne room. I know many people have just put the throne furniture right on top of that, just to make it look better. And same thing with Kellar's Keep. This is also a long piece that I had to fold over. You have your coffins, you have a spell effect, a pile of bones. The mechanical room, I believe this spins, I could be wrong though. And more tiles to block off squares, secret doors, and pit traps. Then looking in here, we have another deck of cards, another iron door, as well as another reinforced door. And just like with Kellar's Keep, these are the same miniatures featured in the base game. Still nothing out of the ordinary, and it's just kind of dawned on me how many undead and other miniatures I have. I should probably gather them up and see how many I have to paint in this set. It's probably quite a few. Now the cards: Anti-Poison, Armband of Healing, Dust of Disappearance, Magical Throwing Dagger, Rabbit Boots, Spell Scrolls, Potion of Battle, Dexterity, Restoration, and Venom Antidote. Same as before, there were some equipment cards and some artifact cards. Finally, we can get to the stretch goal miniature stuff. We are first greeted by the tiles. This would be Joe Manganiello's Crypt of Perpetual Darkness tiles. The only thing I'm seeing with this tavern that I really don't like, and that other people have pointed out, is they really had to print the Made in China right there instead of in any of this blank space. Apparently during the actual quest it's covered up by like a cupboard, but if you're using this for custom things, that's not necessary. The other thing is these chairs are tiny, but that's a minor nitpick. This stuff is double-sided, because on the other side is the Dragon's Chamber. I'm guessing it'll spawn in that pool of acid or somewhere on the stone platform. I'm not sure. And these are the other tiles, grasping roots, some kind of bony hand there that looks all poisoned, poisoned skulls, and on the flip side of that, oh, it's the same thing? That's weird. I was not expecting them to be double-sided like that, with the same exact symbols. Then we have a stack of quest books, Spirit Queen's Torment, which is the Bard quest, Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, which is very obviously the Dragon quest, and Prophecy of Kellar, which is Stephen Baker's exclusive quest that we first heard about. Then we have 6 extra combat dice chilling at the top. These are exactly the same as the ones in the base game, with the fairly sharp corners. Very thin mouth on that lion for some reason. Because of the dice samples sent out to YouTubers at the start, I made the assumption that these extra dice would possibly be like those. Maybe those were rolling around way too much and didn't really stop that well, and so that's why they changed them to be like this. Who knows? I'll set the cards aside for now. Let's actually take a look at this little heroic box in the corner. Oh, more tape. Okay. As I mentioned in a previous video, it was packaged like this so that they could easily just put this in the heroic tier as well, and they had left a spot for us Mythic Tier backers to get it. Oh, cards fell out. These are just the alternate gender cards: Barbarian, Dwarf, Male Elf, and Female Wizard. And here are all the alt sculpts and Sir Ragnar. Here is the guy you rescue in the second quest. And I'm not quite sure why they gave this guy a miniature specifically, but none of the other characters that appear, like there's an orc boss, which in the old game you'd represent by this guy on the left with the big sword, you can see compared to a normal orc. But there isn't really one with a big sword in this game, even with these extra miniatures. Oh, these are annoying to get out. Female Barbarian, similar pose as the male one. Same thing with Female Dwarf, probably has the same hands. You can see there, just the only thing different being the body part, because this is 2 separate pieces. Male Elf, I think this is what some classic fans are going to be using, since the elf in the 1990 version was male. And Female Wizard, again very similar to the male wizard. It's just really dawned on me how many miniatures are here. Here are the special goblins, wearing some kind of animal skin on their heads, and with the sharp claws. I believe in the Rogers Hall quest these were called Nachka goblins. So this was one of the first stretch goals we were given, I think. Then our alternate sculpt abominations. These things are pretty cool. Whoa. That's a lot more spines and tentacles than the other one. And he very much has a almost squid-like beak thing, rather than looking more like a fish, even though it does have webbed hands and feet. Then another sculpt of Undead Warrior, a skeleton. Ooh. This one has such well-defined face detail, or at least sunken eyes, that's good. Dragging behind his broken sword behind him. Actually overlapping the base, kind of. That's cool. Got a little pouch there. Spine facing sideways. Spiked shoulder pad. Then Female Mummy. Whoa. Alright, this looks good too. There's not much more that I can say about this one. It looks very similar to the other mummy, except it's just in a different pose. And looks a little bit smaller. Ooh, orcs with warhammers. Yeah, that's nice. Big, thick pieces of plastic here too. I thought maybe they reused the same body from this axe-wielding orc, but nope. The axe-wielding orc, as you can see, has a mohawk, whereas this guy is completely bald. So they had to design a whole new miniature for this, not just put on different hands with a new weapon. Then the alternate Dread Warrior, the ones with the swords. And something interesting about these that I didn't notice until somebody else pointed this out is that these are female. You can tell by the boob armor. But the good thing about this one is it's actually more accurate, because instead of deflecting blows towards your vital organs, it would deflect blows away because of this center skull piece. Same as the other Dread Warrior, this has the flowing cape and the evil face shield. Dread Sorceress, with just a slightly rotten off face and a different staff. I think that's a magic effect on the top. Oh, it's a skull. Okay. Same thing as the other one. This has a little bit of an Egyptian feel, which is kind of interesting. Or maybe it's just because I'm looking at the mummies too. Then the female zombie with her broken up machete. It's always good to have another zombie in the crew. Another one to fight, which you can substitute this for any other zombie you spawn because they're exactly the same stats. Our second gargoyle. This one is a lot more bestial, and I like it a lot. It's got cloven feet and everything. This one I might paint like sandstone. I saw somebody else do that and it looked really awesome. I love the stone look of gargoyles. Or they would actually be grotesques because they're not shooting water. Anyways, let's continue with the Witch Lord. Ooh, there's some decent detail on his face. And I really love the texture on his robe. I know that I saw that before, but it's a little bit different when you see it in person. Oh, he has a dagger on his back too. I didn't realize that. And his staff is slightly bent, but again, hot water can fix that. Same with all the other stuff. I'll have to go through and see what I need to fix, and then do that before I prime. Then we have the stretch goal heroes. Here's our little halfling warlock girl with the flowing dress. Dagger in one hand, spell in the other. Miniature for mentor being an alternate to the wizard. This guy might get some use. I really like the look of this guy. He's that classic wizard look instead of a new looking wizard, which is what HeroQuest originally had. And our orc bard. Okay, good. Mine does have hands. Some other people said that theirs was missing a hand, so it's good that I have it. And he's very charismatic. He has both a lute and his rapier on him. And he's, of course, on a treasure chest with a feather in his hat. And the druid. Okay, this is alright. I'm glad they went with the leaves in the end, because it makes it look more like a druid rather than some person out for yoga. And yeah, I like the stick. Goes from the back to the front. There's not much more that I can say about her. Let's see what the cards are for. We have the Bard Hero, Warlock Hero, Druid Hero, and Wizard/Mentor Hero. These are Druid spells, Life Force, Pixie, and Shapeshift. These, I believe, are Warlock, Bard Equipment, and now we get into Bard spells, Inspiring Tale, Healing Song, and Lullaby, which is like a sleep spell, of course. Warlock's equipment. Maybe this dagger was Druid's equipment, if the wand is Warlock's. We have Demon Form for a Warlock spell, Fear, and Dark Wings, which is the form where you reduce damage. And for exclusive artifacts, we have Crown of Shadows and Dragon Spear, which very obviously belong to the Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. Oh, those are Dread Skulls. Whoa, I didn't realize the tavern was integrated into a quest. That's cool. I thought it was just something separate you'd use beforehand. Oh, there's an epilogue for this adventure too. Okay, there's no more ignoring it. I've teased you long enough. Let's look at the dragon. Ooh. This thing is massive. Ooh, I also got a good one. You can tell because the back plates are actually fully fastened down rather than being up. That's good. I got a good version of the game. The tail of this dragon wraps around the pillar. Oh, there's a little bit of a gap there, but that's so minor. I could fill it if I need. Oh, the wings too. They're folded up, but they'd be way too large if it was the full wingspan. And of course, it is a medium-sized miniature in D&D terms, so it fits on one single tile. This thing is hefty too. Like, it's so heavy, but it's sturdy. Getting down on the same level of it is intimidating. Like, let's take our little barbarian. That's the size difference, and the barbarian's even in front, so yeah, that's a big miniature. That's going to be fun to play and fun to paint. I am looking forward to that.
With everything now unboxed, it's time to understand the quantity of it all, and whether or not it was worth buying into. There are 6 quest books, 8 abominations, 6 dread warriors, 2 dread sorcerers, 2 gargoyles, a dragon, 14 goblins, 18 orcs, all the base game furniture plus 2 additional iron and reinforced doors, 12 heroes plus Sir Ragnar, 30 undead and the Witch Lord, as well as the game board and a bunch of cards and tiles. The amount of content, or even just miniatures within the Mythic tier is ridiculous. That's 95 miniatures, not including any of the furniture. It's been a year and a half, and I've painted a few, but I really need to look into using contrast paints for the undead, and possibly starting batch painting to get through them all. They are a little bit more challenging to paint than the 1990 miniatures, due to the dynamic poses and smaller details, but I think that a beginner painter could still get tabletop quality miniatures without too much difficulty, especially with the aid of contrast paints and things like that. The same color schemes as my tutorials for the original miniatures work, just with a few extra colors here and there for additional details. While the price of the game during the crowdfunding campaign was expensive, at about 300 Canadian dollars, the Mythic tier is about the same price as buying the base game and the first 2 expansions separately at retail, but came with an entire other box of alternate sculpts and quests to run through. I personally feel that the Mythic tier was definitely worth the extra cost, even if it means I have more miniatures than I know what to do with. But it's not all positive, and as I alluded to multiple times throughout the video, many people face production errors or missing pieces in their sets. That's not exclusive to Hasbro, but is just something that happens when mass producing goods. From what I've heard, overall Avalon Hill has been quite good at sending replacements, and even sent someone 2 Dread Warriors recently when only one of theirs was broken. As for the plastic tray, which was one of the biggest issues with the game, Avalon Hill took our feedback and altered the base game box to not hold the miniatures as tightly. Presumably, this change has continued for future expansions. Even though it doesn't change anything for Mythic and Heroic backers, it indicates that Avalon Hill does care about the community's feedback. So with all these points in mind, it's time to answer the title of this video. Should you have bought the Mythic tier? The answer of course depended on your financial position and your general attitude towards the new version of HeroQuest, but from what I've seen it was definitely worth the money and the wait. While there are some negative parts to it, like warped miniatures, issues with glue placement, and that plastic tray, I'm overall very satisfied with the quality and quantity of everything that was included in the set I purchased. And purchasing any edition of the new version of the game brings you one step closer to playing with the entirely new expansions, such as Rise of the Dread Moon that will be coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll definitely have more HeroQuest videos coming in the future. Goodbye!